Every year in the United States, 1 in 4 adults over the age of 65 falls. 1 in 4. And of those falls, more than a third happen in the bedroom. Not on the stairs, not in the bathroom. In the bedroom, within the first few steps of getting up. The reason is not weakness. It is not balance failure. It is something specific that happens inside your body in the first 30 seconds after you move from lying down to standing, a physiological event that almost no one over 70 has been told about clearly, and it happens every single morning to virtually everyone in this age group. There is one change to how you get out of bed that directly addresses this event. It takes no equipment. It costs nothing. It adds less than 60 seconds to your morning routine. And the research on its effectiveness at preventing falls in adults over 70 is some of the most consistent in the entire fall prevention literature. I want to explain the biology behind it first, because when you understand what is actually happening in your body those first 30 seconds, the change I am going to walk you through is not just a tip. It is an obvious response to a specific problem. And that makes it far easier to actually do. Stay through the second half of this because I am also going to cover 4 other morning habits that compound on this first change, habits that together reduce fall risk in this age group by a percentage that will surprise you. This channel is built for adults over 65, not for people who are interested in aging someday, but for people who are living it right now and want the research translated honestly, without the vague platitudes and without the things being sold. Falls are something I take seriously in this space because they are the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65 in the United States, and because a significant portion of them are genuinely preventable, not by being more careful, but by understanding the specific biology that makes the morning hours the highest risk window. Quick question before we start. Have you ever felt dizzy or unsteady in the first moments after getting out of bed? Drop a yes or no in the comments. I want to understand how common this is in this community. Let me start with the mechanism, because it is the foundation of everything else. When you are lying down, your body distributes blood relatively evenly. Your heart is pumping against minimal gravitational resistance. Your blood pressure is steady. Your brain is receiving a reliable, continuous supply of oxygenated blood. Everything is in equilibrium. The moment you move from lying to sitting, and then from sitting to standing, gravity changes the equation immediately. Approximately 300 to 800 milliliters of blood, that is up to almost a full liter, shifts downward toward your legs and abdomen. It pools there, pulled by gravity, and for a brief window, your upper body and brain are receiving less blood than they were a second ago. Your body has a system designed specifically to handle this. It is called the baroreflex, a rapid response feedback loop managed by pressure sensors called baroreceptors, located in the walls of major blood vessels near your heart and in your neck. When those sensors detect a drop in blood pressure, they send an immediate signal to the heart to beat faster and to the blood vessels to constrict slightly, pushing blood back upward. In a healthy young adult, this correction happens within seconds and is essentially unnoticed. After 70, this system becomes slower and less precise. The baroreceptors themselves become less sensitive with age. They detect the pressure drop, but the signal is quieter. The heart's ability to increase rate rapidly in response to the signal is reduced, partly due to natural changes in cardiac conduction and partly due to the effects of common medications. And the blood vessels, which in a younger person snap back to their tighter diameter quickly, are often stiffer and less responsive. The result is a condition called orthostatic hypotension, a drop in blood pressure that occurs when you stand up, that is not fully corrected by the baroreflex within the normal window. The clinical definition is a drop of 20 millimeters of mercury or more in systolic pressure, or 10 millimeters or more in diastolic pressure within 3 minutes of standing. A 2020 study from Johns Hopkins, published in Hypertension, found that orthostatic hypotension is present in approximately 30% of community-dwelling adults over the age of 70. 30%. Nearly 1 in 3 people watching this video may have this happening every morning without knowing what it is. In the seconds when blood pressure is low and the brain is receiving reduced flow, the symptoms range from subtle, a brief sense of lightheadedness, a moment of visual dimming, a slight feeling of the room tilting, to significant, genuine unsteadiness, loss of coordination, and in some cases a fall before the person has taken more than 2 steps. Most people who experience the milder version dismiss it. They assume it is normal. They have experienced it for years and adapted around it without knowing what they were adapting around. And the falls that come from it are often attributed to losing balance, tripping, or not being careful enough, rather than to a specific physiological event that happened before the fall began. Here is why the morning window is specifically the highest risk period. After lying down for 7 or 8 hours, your blood has been pooled in a low-gravity horizontal position. Your blood pressure during sleep is typically 10 to 20% lower than during the day. The baroreflex has not been challenged in hours and is, in a sense, cold. And in many older adults, particularly those who woke in the night and are tired, or who are slightly dehydrated from the overnight fast, the cardiovascular system is at its least prepared for the gravitational challenge of standing. That is the biology of why the bedroom, and specifically the moment of rising from bed, is the highest risk fall window in the day for adults over 70. Now, I want to describe the one change. It is called a staged rise, and it works by giving the baroreflex the time it needs to do its job before you ask your legs to carry your full weight upright. Here is exactly what it looks like. When you wake and are ready to get up, do not sit straight up. Instead, roll to your side first. Bring your knees toward your chest slightly and roll onto your side, whichever side is most comfortable, or whichever is closer to the edge of the bed. This is the first stage, and it matters because it begins the gravitational transition gradually rather than all at once. From your side position, use your arms to push yourself up to sitting, while simultaneously swinging your legs over the edge of the bed. You are now sitting upright, feet on the floor or hanging. Stop here. Do not stand yet. Sit at the edge of the bed for a minimum of 30 seconds, ideally 60 seconds. During this time, you can do something active with your feet and legs. Flex your ankles, press your feet into the floor, make small circles with your feet. These movements are not just to pass the time. They activate the calf muscles, which function as a secondary pump for blood returning from the lower body to the heart. When you contract the calves, you are mechanically squeezing blood back upward, actively assisting the baroreflex rather than waiting for it to work alone. A 2019 clinical trial published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society, specifically studying adults aged 70 to 88 with confirmed orthostatic hypotension, found that a structured staged rise protocol, similar to what I just described, with a 60-second seated pause and calf activation exercises, reduced the magnitude of the blood pressure drop on standing by an average of 14 millimeters of mercury systolic. That reduction moved the majority of participants out of the clinical orthostatic hypotension range entirely. After your 30 to 60 seconds of seated calf activation, place both feet firmly on the floor. Then, and this is important, use your hands to push off the bed surface as you stand, rather than rocking forward and using momentum. Pushing off with your hands distributes the effort and keeps your center of gravity lower as you rise, reducing the brief instability that accompanies the transition to full standing. Once standing, keep one hand on the bed, nightstand, or wall for an additional 10 to 15 seconds. You are now fully upright, and the baroreflex is completing its correction. By giving it the stage time it needs, the rolling to the side, the seated pause with calf work, the supported standing, you have essentially extended the correction window from the 2 to 3 seconds. Most people give it to 90 seconds or more. For an aging baroreflex, that additional time is the difference between a corrected pressure drop and an uncorrected one. Consider an older man in his mid-70s, a retired carpenter, someone who spent decades rising quickly and moving immediately because the job demanded it. After his first fall getting out of bed, a fall he could not explain because he had not tripped and had not felt weak, just suddenly found himself on the floor. He learned this protocol from a physical therapist. He described the first few weeks as frustrating. He was used to moving without pausing, but within a month, the brief dizziness he had apparently been ignoring for years was gone, or rather, he had stopped giving it the opportunity to become a fall. That is what the staged rise does. It does not fix the orthostatic hypotension. It gives the body's own correction system the time it needs to work. One specific note for anyone taking blood pressure medication, diuretics, alpha blockers for the prostate, or certain antidepressants, these medications can significantly worsen orthostatic hypotension, and the staged rise is especially important for you. If you are experiencing frequent morning lightheadedness, despite using this protocol, please bring it to your doctor. Timing adjustments, taking some medications in the evening rather than the morning, for example, can make a meaningful difference and are worth discussing. Before I go into the 4 additional habits that compound on this first change, I want to spend a few minutes on something that I think is important for how you approach fall prevention in general. The dominant mental model most people have of falling is this. They imagine losing their balance, tripping over something, or having a moment of weakness in their legs. The fall in this model is the result of a single discrete event, a missed step, a loose rug, a moment of inattention. That model is accurate for some falls, but it misses the majority of falls in adults over 70, which research consistently shows are multifactorial, meaning they happen at the intersection of several contributing factors that individually might not cause a fall, but together create a window of vulnerability. A 2017 systematic review in The Lancet, covering over 110,000 fall events in adults over 65, identified the most consistent contributing factors. Orthostatic hypotension was present in a significant proportion of falls. Muscle weakness, specifically in the quadriceps and hip abductors, was a factor in the majority. Medication effects, particularly from 4 drug classes, sedatives and sleep aids, antihistamines, antihypertensives, and psychotropic medications, footwear and foot health, vision, and home environment. The key insight from this literature is that falls are almost always preventable in retrospect, not because the person should have been more careful, but because the specific contributing factors were identifiable and addressable before the fall happened. The staged rise addresses orthostatic hypotension, one primary factor. The 4 habits I am about to describe address several others. Together, they are not just tips. They are a systematic approach to removing the factors that create the window of vulnerability in the first place. The second habit, they are intentional about what is on their feet in the first minutes after rising. This sounds trivial. It is not. The foot is the primary sensory interface between your body and the ground. It contains a dense network of proprioceptive receptors, nerve endings that detect pressure, texture, and positional change and send continuous information to the brain and spinal cord about where the body is in space. This proprioceptive feedback is a primary component of balance. It works in parallel with the vestibular system in the inner ear and with vision to give the central nervous system the data it needs to maintain upright stability. After 70, proprioceptive sensitivity in the feet declines significantly. A 2018 study in Age and Aging found that proprioceptive threshold in the feet, the minimum detectable stimulus, was substantially higher in adults over 70 than in younger adults, meaning the foot sensors are less responsive, sending slower and weaker signals to the balance system. 2 things that make this worse: being barefoot on a smooth surface and wearing thick-soled slippers or loose footwear. Being barefoot sounds like it should improve ground sensation, but on smooth flooring, hardwood, tile, linoleum, the foot is on a surface that provides minimal proprioceptive input because there is nothing for the receptors to differentiate. The result is reduced balance feedback at precisely the moment, the first steps of the morning, when the vestibular and cardiovascular systems are also at their least primed. Thick-soled slippers are worse. They mute the proprioceptive signal further, while also being loose-fitting enough to create a tripping hazard and soft enough to allow ankle roll on uneven transitions. The research on footwear and falls in older adults consistently points to the same profile for lowest fall risk: close-fitting, flexible-soled shoes with a heel collar that provides ankle support, a thin enough sole to preserve ground sensation, and a non-slip outer surface. This means that the safe footwear for the first steps of the morning is not slippers. It is a shoe, a proper fitting shoe that you put on before you take those first steps. The practical implementation: keep a pair of supportive shoes beside the bed and put them on during your seated edge pause, the 60 seconds you are sitting at the edge of the bed doing calf activation. You are using that pause productively, and you are shod before you take your first standing steps. Habit 3. They drink water before they stand up, not after, before. Dehydration is one of the most under-recognized contributors to orthostatic hypotension in this age group, and dehydration in the morning, after 7 to 8 hours without fluid intake, is not a sign that something is wrong. It is the physiological norm. Every adult wakes in a state of mild dehydration. The question is whether that dehydration is compounding the orthostatic hypotension risk or not. Here is the specific mechanism. Blood volume is the primary determinant of how well the cardiovascular system can respond to a gravitational challenge. When blood volume is lower, as it is after an overnight fast, and more so in adults who run chronically low on fluid intake, the baroreflex has less material to work with. The vessels can constrict and the heart can accelerate, but if there is less total blood volume to redistribute, the correction is less complete. Water consumed before rising does two things. First, it begins the process of restoring blood volume. Fluid is absorbed from the gut relatively quickly, within 10 to 20 minutes for a glass of water, and increases circulating plasma volume, giving the cardiovascular system more to work with during the orthostatic challenge. Second, and this is the mechanism that is less widely known, water ingestion triggers what researchers call the pressor effect, a reflex increase in sympathetic nervous system activity that causes blood vessels to constrict and blood pressure to rise modestly. This pressor effect peaks roughly 20 to 30 minutes after drinking and lasts for up to an hour. A 2003 study in Circulation, which has been replicated multiple times since THAS, found that drinking 480 milliliters of water, roughly 16 ounces or 2 cups, produced a measurable rise in systolic blood pressure of approximately 11 millimeters of mercury within 20 minutes, with the effect most pronounced in older adults. The researchers specifically proposed this as an intervention for orthostatic hypotension. The practical habit: a glass of water on the nightstand, consumed before you begin the staged rise process. You drink it while still in bed, before you even begin rolling to your side. By the time you complete the staged rise, which takes at least 90 seconds, the pressor effect is already beginning, and you are rising with a modestly higher blood pressure baseline and better blood volume than if you had risen first and reached for water afterward. This is genuinely one of the simplest and most evidence-supported morning interventions for this age group. It requires nothing but a glass of water within reach. Habit 4. Before they stand, they activate their lower legs deliberately. I touched on calf activation during the seated pause, but I want to give this its own section because the research behind targeted lower leg activation as a fall prevention strategy is substantial, and because most fall prevention programs skip it in favor of core and hip work, which is also important but misses a specific mechanism. The calves and ankles are the farthest point from the heart in the circulatory circuit. Blood that has pooled in the legs during overnight rest needs to be returned upward before you stand, and the primary mechanical pump for that return is the calf muscle. When the calf contracts, it squeezes the deep veins in the leg, physically propelling blood upward against gravity. This is called the calf muscle pump, and in a young active person, it operates continuously during walking. In an older person who has been horizontal for 8 hours, it has been inactive for the same period. Before you stand, while still seated on the edge of the bed, a specific sequence of movements activates this pump and begins venous return before the gravitational challenge of standing is applied. First, ankle pumps. Point your toes down, then flex them back toward your shin. Repeat this 10 to 15 times, slowly and fully. This is the most direct activation of the gastrocnemius and soleus, the primary calf muscles, that can be performed without bearing weight. Second, heel raises if you can reach the floor. If your feet touch or nearly touch the floor from your seated position on the bed edge, press your heels down and then raise them. 10 repetitions. If your feet do not reach, continue with the ankle pumps. Third, toe curls and spreads. Curl your toes tightly, hold for 2 seconds, then spread them wide. 5 repetitions. This activates the intrinsic foot muscles, which also contribute to proprioceptive sensitivity and are often weak and underused in this age group due to years of constrictive footwear. A 2021 study in the Journal of Geriatric Physical Therapy found that a brief pre-standing lower extremity activation protocol, similar to this sequence, performed over 45 to 60 seconds before rising, significantly reduced the drop in systolic blood pressure on standing in adults over 70 with orthostatic hypotension compared to a standard staged rise without the activation sequence. The addition of the activation component improved the blood pressure response by an additional 8 millimeters of mercury on average, compounding on the benefit of the staged rise itself. This is the kind of specific targeted intervention that most general exercise programs do not include, because they are not designed with the morning physiology of older adults in mind. You are not doing this to strengthen your calves, though it does that over time. You are doing it to prime the venous return system before you ask it to handle standing. The fifth habit, they have arranged their bedroom environment to support the morning transition rather than work against it. This is not about decluttering. It is about 5 specific elements of the bedroom environment that the research on fall location and fall mechanism identifies as modifiable contributors to morning falls. The first is lighting. The highest risk window for falls is the first minutes after rising, and in many households, the bedroom is dark or semi-dark when this transition happens, either because it is early morning before sunrise or because blackout curtains are keeping light out. Low light reduces visual input to the balance system when proprioception is already reduced with age and the vestibular system is calibrating after sleep. Vision becomes a more critical balance input than it is at full alertness. A night light or motion sensor light that activates when you sit up removes this visual deficit at no cost. The research on lighting and fall prevention in residential settings is consistent. Adequate lighting in the path from bed to bathroom reduces fall frequency in this age group. The second is bed height. A bed that is too low requires more hip flexion and quadriceps effort to rise from, and increases the risk of the momentum-based rise, rocking forward and lunging upward, that bypasses the staged rise entirely. A bed height at which your hips are approximately level with or slightly above your knees when seated at the edge is the research-supported target. If your current bed is lower than this, a bed riser or a firmer, thicker mattress foundation can address it. The third is the path from the bed to the door and bathroom. A 2019 study in injury epidemiology found that the majority of bedroom falls in adults over 70 occurred not at the moment of rising, but within the first 4 steps, before full cardiovascular correction was complete, and before vision and proprioception had fully calibrated. A clear, unobstructed path, with no rugs, no furniture corners at shin height, and no cables or objects on the floor, removes the environmental hazards from the highest risk window. The fourth is the presence of a stable support surface within reach of the bed, a nightstand or bed rail that is genuinely stable, that does not rock or shift when weight is placed on it, provides the handhold support needed for the final phase of the staged rise and for the first steps. Many nightstands are not stable enough for this purpose. A wall-mounted grab bar beside the bed is the gold standard. A heavy, stable nightstand is a reasonable alternative. A light, freestanding table with wheels is a hazard. The fifth is the phone. If you wake in the night and reach for your phone, or if your phone is kept at a distance that requires getting up to reach it, you are performing an unplanned, unsupported rise in low light, often after waking from deep sleep, without water, without footwear, and without the staged rise protocol. Night wakings to reach phones, chargers, or other objects are a disproportionate contributor to 2 a.m. falls in this age group. The simple intervention: keep the phone on the nightstand, charged, within reach from the bed. I want to be direct about when the information in this video is not enough on its own. If you experience dizziness, lightheadedness, or visual dimming when you stand, even occasionally, please mention this to your doctor. Orthostatic hypotension that is frequent or severe is a treatable condition, and the treatment options beyond behavioral management include medication adjustments, compression stockings, dietary sodium modification under medical guidance, and in some cases, specific medications that support blood pressure on standing. If you have fallen in the past year, once or more, please tell your doctor and ask for a formal fall risk assessment. A falls assessment in this age group includes a medication review, a vision check, a balance and gait evaluation, and a home safety review. Each of those components has evidence-based interventions behind it, and the combination of interventions targeted to your specific risk factors is far more effective than any single change. If you are on any of the 4 high-fall risk medication classes, sedatives and sleep aids, antihistamines, antihypertensives, and antidepressants or antipsychotics, and you are experiencing morning unsteadiness, that combination is worth a specific conversation about timing, dosage, and alternatives. These medications are often necessary and appropriately prescribed, but the fall risk they carry is also real, and it is manageable with your doctor's involvement. A physical therapist who specializes in geriatric fall prevention is one of the most underutilized resources in this age group. A course of PT, even 6 to 8 sessions, that focuses on balance training, lower extremity strength, and gait pattern can produce fall risk reductions that are among the largest of any single intervention in the literature. If your doctor can refer you, it is worth asking. Let me bring the full morning protocol together, because these 5 elements are most effective as a sequence, each one building on the one before. Before you move, drink a glass of water from the nightstand. Begin your body's pressor response and start restoring blood volume before the gravitational challenge begins. Roll to your side. Do not sit straight up. Use your arms to push to sitting while swinging your legs to the edge. Seated edge, pause. 30 to 60 seconds minimum. During this pause, perform ankle pumps, heel raises, and toe curls to activate the calf muscle pump and begin venous return. Put on your shoes, supported stand, push off the bed with your hands. Keep one hand on a stable surface for 10 to 15 seconds after reaching full standing height. Clear path, adequate light, stable support surface. These are the environmental conditions that make the protocol work. Without them, you are managing the cardiovascular risk, but not the environmental one. These 5 elements together, the water, the staged rise, the lower leg activation, the footwear, and the environment, address the primary contributing factors to morning falls in adults over 70 in a way that no single change can do alone. Tonight, the one thing I want you to do, put a glass of water on your nightstand before you go to sleep. That is the smallest possible start, and it is the first element in the sequence. Everything else can be added across the next week, but start tonight with the water. Tell me in the comments, had you ever heard of orthostatic hypotension before today? And do you already do any version of a staged rise, or have you always just gotten straight up? If someone in your life, a spouse, a parent, a sibling, has fallen recently and no one could explain why, please share this with them. The biology I described today is the explanation for a large proportion of falls that are written off as accidents. They are not accidents. They are predictable events with a specific cause and a specific prevention. Next video, there is a reading on a standard blood panel that most adults over 65 have done at least once, but very few have had explained properly. The number tells a story about what is happening inside your arteries and your brain, and when it trends in the wrong direction for years without correction, it quietly doubles cardiovascular risk. Your doctor sees it. Most do not explain it. That is next.